Okay, so back at the gun labs, we're gonna go ahead and well, we saw at the range the difference between the Magpul PMag and the DPMS mag. It was a steel magazine, not an aluminum magazine, and we saw the difference in the shot groups. All right, so now what we're going to do is get this barrel to be free floating. So we're going to put a free float handguard on here, and then once that's complete, we'll go back out to the range and see if there's a difference in shot groups, if any. You know, I've been working with the M16 family for over 23 years, and having a handguard that touches the barrel in the front and the back hasn't really made a difference. But we're not talking about sniper stuff. We've just been talking about foot soldiering type stuff. So, trying to build a sapper out of the Smith & Wesson M&P-10, that's a whole nother ball game. But the word on the street is this thing's pretty accurate. But you've seen the groups. So we've worked on ammo. We've worked on a bunch of accessories to help steady position and aim, right? And now it's a matter of the barrel, when it fires, goes like this, and you have contact here and here with the handguard that may impede that natural motion of the barrel. So we're going to take some steps now to mitigate that. Stick with me. Okay, so we've got the upper locked in a vise. Key tasks are removing the flash suppressor. The gas port, what we're going to do is we're going to swap the stock gas port. What I have is a VLTOR clamp-on miniature gas block, right, with set screws. They have the ones that have the little dimple that's supposed to lock into a dimple on the barrel, which may or may not work. We'll discover here right now, once we unbolt this thing, whether or not there's in fact a dimple. So the advice was with the set screws, and that's what I'm going with. Once the gas block comes off, the handguards will come off, and we'll have to retain the section of rail here and apply that to the Apex. I'm going with the Apex free float handguard here. It comes with the M-lock spaces, and so this is an M-lock rail. So we'll set that up before we slide it over the whole thing. But you can see here how long it's going to be, approximately, once it's installed. After that, we've got an Apex rail, which should tie in nicely. So it'll go on. It's pretty proprietary, so the screws only go on one way. You see here there's a little overhang, but once it's installed, it'll mesh nicely with the factory rail. Okay, first step, muzzle brake removal. Don't forget, before, and I'll show you here in a little bit, we measured this out and the wrench size was 7/8. Better to use a one piece because you know how crescent wrenches like to loosen, but this crescent wrench has marks on it. It came out to 7/8 of an inch. So use that if you got it. Don't forget, before you replace this stuff, you're going to need another crush washer. Right, this one's been crushed already, so you need a new one, right, so that it'll be pushing up against the muzzle brake so that it won't go flying off when you're shooting. I'm going to be honest with you, this was a major pain. Took 2 dudes, 3 policemen, and a K9 unit to break these off. Alright, so if you have the high-speed tool for the D-nut, use it. Okay, gas port removal. 30 seconds. Allen key, real easy. And remember, part of your calculations is that you're going to need to take up this slack here that this washer basically makes. It may or may not make that big of a difference, but it's something to consider. Now all we got to do is pull the pin, punch the pin out of here, and remove the gas tube. now it's time to remove the barrel nut. So you can go on eBay and find one of these high-speed barrel nut wrenches. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, so we're going to want to go counterclockwise on this sucker. And FYI, you have to push back on the D nut to make sure you get a good purchase on there. Alright? And then counterclockwise, give it a good heave. Alright, and there you go. You still got to hold it back. It takes still some more spinning. It's still pretty tight to get it finger tight or finger loose. There was some question on some of the other 308 videos of whether or not the barrel was loose, which was causing some of the errors in the zeroing. That was not it. You know, off camera I had to really wail on this thing to break it loose, so some of this was Hollywood acting, right? Because I didn't want to embarrass myself, but I had to do some whacking on this thing in order to actually crack this sucker. So it was not a loose barrel, believe me. Okay, so once the snap ring is out, here you have your barrel nut, right? You got your weld spring, right? And that's it. You're going to remove this stuff, but we're going to take our barrel nut and apply it back onto the barrel. Okay, so, right, the theory is we're going to use the barrel nut wrench along with a torque wrench, right? You wind up putting the torque wrench in here and torquing it clockwise now, righty-tighty, right, to the approximate specifications. Okay, so once you get your torque wrench set to what we're using is 40 foot-pounds. The tolerance is between 35 and 50, so we're using 40. Make sure that your torque wrench is in line with your barrel nut wrench. All right, slip that sucker on there. Right, and torque up, or I should say right, clockwise. Okay. We talked about the replacement gas port and lining it up with the mark from the old gas port. There was a wear mark on the barrel that we did line it up with, which we double checked with the washer here. It fits, so we snugged up against there. All right, and then we also ensured that the bolt action actually locked before we tightened anything down. So the bolt, along with the charging handle, we ensured that there is no gas tube movement. Alright, that way you know that, one, it's long enough that the gas is going to hit the bolt and it's going to make sure that the bolt action works properly. Then we also made sure that it is going to lock, it's not hitting on the inside of the tube, inside the upper. Alright, so verify those things before you call it good. Bam! 50 inch-pounds. Okay, so we've got the gas port torqued down. Next step is to put the Apex handguard clamp on, which is real easy. You can't screw this up. There are two halves. One is smooth, the other one has a room, a little groove in here for the gas tube. So that goes on the top, right, and the bottom. 4 screws, torque to 60 inch-pounds. Alright, so now that you have the clamp on, you put the actual handguard on. Make sure you put any accessory rails on beforehand, because once you do, it's not going to fit properly. You line up these holes, 1, 2, 3, 4, and put these tiny screws in. And again, you want to keep it loose till it's all fit properly. So the jury's still out on this thing. I'm just seeing a lot of scratches, and because this is steel, it's not plastic, so, or aluminum, I should say. So it's not scuff proof, which is kind of disturbing. I mean, if you really wanted a combat rifle, I'm not sure that this is conducive. It's a nice, sexy rifle to have on your wall or in your safe, but if you're afraid of scuffing it up, I wouldn't buy this kit if you're going to deploy. Because resale value, you wouldn't be able to resell this thing. You're just going to, scuff this up. I do have to say, they are not trying to cross thread. They just go in the grooves, like first time the right way.
Yeah.
Okay, so the rail, the final accessory on here. This is an Apex rail with the Apex handguard. This was the actual only piece that I bought from Apex because nobody had any marked down price. This was marked down, and I'll put in the vendor that I got this from, but it was not full price. It was like $244, so maybe I saved 15 bucks on the handguard itself. The rail was full price that I got, and then the VLTOR gas block I actually got from Primary Arms, and it was standard price, about 50 bucks for the small gas block. Just an FYI. Anyway, so this thing only fits one way. It's a proprietary. You're not going to be able to grab any long rail, Picatinny rail for this and have it fit as well. So, I mean, it's machined specifically for this. The holes here line up, and it goes right on top. 5 small screws, very simple. And one thing I'm experiencing with this is that none of these screws, whether it was the mounting screws or the clamp screws, none of them proved to have any ability to cross thread. So the machining is great on this. They go in the right way the first time with no issues. So, good job, Apex. Alright, so that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I didn't even see this one because it was kind of deep weld here. I thought I missed it. Alright, so, and another consideration on this, right? They have these channels on both sides, which makes mounting any rail-mounted accessories easy. It's not a complete circle that's going to cack up the space here between your rail and your mounting thing. So let me see. This is not the proper place for the scope. I dig it, but as an example, right, this thing just slides on there, and the space was already, and this is on both sides, properly engineered to allow you to get your equipment, whatever you're going to put on here, in the groove the first time, no issues. So again, good job, Apex.